Fox and Friends.
All right, well, Ron Paul and Mitt Romney are the only two Republican presidential candidates on the Virginia primary ballot. Newt Gingrich and Rick Perry tried to get on, but they failed to collect enough valid signatures. But what about the candidates who didn't even bother? Michelle Bachmann, Jon Huntsman, and Rick Santorum. What should they do? Well, for a fair and balanced debate, we're joined by former aide to Senator Chuck Schumer and Fox News contributor Christopher Hahn and chairman of Civic Forum PAC and former presidential campaign advisor Ford O'Connell. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Chris, let me start with you. What are we to make of the candidates who didn't even attempt to get on the Virginia ballot? I mean, Virginia's an important state, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it went for Obama 4 years ago. It's going to be a very tough battleground state this year. If you're not willing to compete in 50 states, you can't be president. If you're not willing to compete in a state that has a very strong Republican bloc, you really can't seek that Republican nomination. At least that's the way I feel looking at it from the outside. And for those that couldn't qualify, like Newt Gingrich, if it's too complicated to get on the ballot in Virginia, it's too complicated to negotiate with the likes of Putin and Ahmadinejad when you become president. So I don't understand why these guys are even in the game.
Ford, how do you interpret this?
Well, I always love when I get my inside baseball in the Republican Party from Chris. Gingrich and Perry are a different story, but I do think for Bachmann and Santorum, look, they're not going to win the Republican nomination, and they don't have the national appeal to defeat President Obama in a general election. So I think they should gracefully step out as soon as the Iowa caucuses are over. Jon Huntsman, on the other hand, is a slightly different story. While he hasn't made inroads with Republican primary voters, he could conceivably defeat President Obama in a general election, given his record as governor of Utah, and frankly, the fact that the Wall Street Journal says he's got the best economic plan out there. So if Jon Huntsman doesn't gain ground in New Hampshire, I think he should step aside as well.
But here's the crazy thing, and I want to show our viewers the latest Quinnipiac poll of registered Republican voters if the Virginia primary were held today. Gingrich is at the top.
Yep.
Newt Gingrich has 30%. Chris, he's not even going to be on the ballot. Something is wrong with the process, isn't it?
Well, listen, I mean, it's not a very difficult process. I know he's complaining that it's difficult. You needed to get 10,000 signatures, and you needed to get 400 signatures in each of 11 congressional districts. That doesn't seem like a monumental task. And had he put together a serious presidential campaign with a serious organization, he would have accomplished that. This is not that complicated. And again, being president of the United States is far more complicated than that. But I do agree with Ford.
I could not
Governor
Huntsman
Huntsman would have been
a
very formidable candidate if he would have competed nationally.
Okay, but Ford, what do you say to that Gingrich wasn't able to pull it off?
Listen, the Virginia ballot process is archaic. Even Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli says that much. What concerns me about the fact that we only have two candidates on the ballot in Virginia and there's no write-in is the fact that primary turnout's going to be low, and the fact that there's no primary really on the Democratic side, and the fact that Virginia voters don't register by party really tells me that we're going to have a hard time, the eventual Republican nominee, organizing Virginia. And that is a real concern to me, because if the Republican presidential nominee doesn't win Virginia, we're not going to defeat President Obama in 2012.
Well, you know, Ford, it comes down to this. You know, with the exception of Romney and Huntsman at times, the Republicans have been a bunch of Looney Tunes where Newt Gingrich is Wile E. Coyote. He keeps telling everybody he's a genius, but every time I see him, he's falling off another cliff like he did in Virginia. So I don't understand why they think they could be president, but they can't if they can't organize.
Chris,
trust me, Newt Gingrich will beat President Obama if he gets the general election, because he's a strong conservative leader. And trust me, when he gets up there and debates him, I'm going to pull up and watch it just like the Super Bowl.
Sure, as long as he doesn't have to quote any historical facts, because we really know that he doesn't understand them.
That's it, guys. We got to go. Thanks so much for the debate. Always interesting. Chris Hahn, Ford O'Connell, we appreciate you coming in.